Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, July 13th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. Today, you can expect sunny skies and a high of 106. During the week, 9 branch libraries are open as cooling centers, in addition to 19 other senior and community facilities around town. All cooling centers will allow visitors to stop in and cool off during the current exceptional regional heat wave. Del Rio and Eagle Pass may reach 111 degrees. The National Weather Service in New Braunfels on Sunday upgraded its heat advisory for 17 South Texas counties to excessive. And now let's move on to the top headlines for the day. You can find links to all of these articles in the episode's description. The first case of COVID surfaced in Hidalgo County on March 21st, according to Dr. Ivan Melendez, a physician and Hidalgo County's local health authority. 3 months passed before the county recorded a dozen fatalities. Now, according to Dr. Melendez, they're having 15 to 17 people die every day, and they expect for that to continue. The soaring numbers came as the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services opened a temporary surge testing site, vowing to swab up to 5,000 people a day at the Bert Ogden Arena in Edinburgh. It had problems on its first day due to staffing shortages and patients not following directions, officials said. Peggy O'Hare explains why officials are painting a grim picture of how the virus has roared through the county, home to an estimated 868,707 people on the border with Mexico. In Gonzales, known as the birthplace of the Texas Revolution, history is revered. For more than a century, a rebel soldier, his right hand clutching a musket, his left hand shading his eyes, has looked northward from his sentry post atop a tall pedestal in a downtown park. But one man's fond heritage can be another man's bitter affront. Some Gonzales natives see a more complex picture at the square and are pushing against the long-standing status quo. John McCormick takes a closer look at the controversy over the monument and the town's history and how the debate has been heating up. To keep up with rapidly rising COVID-19 cases, San Antonio hospitals are bringing on hundreds of medical personnel from the military, the state's health department, and contract agencies to staff overburdened intensive care units. They are making room for COVID patients across their facilities and are preparing beds in areas that don't usually house patients. In some cases, multiple patients are occupying the same room. Healthcare workers have fallen ill from the same virus they have treated in so many others. Now, hospitals are facing the possibility that the gatherings over the 4th of July holiday could yield another jump in cases, furthering straining staff and capacity. And, should they become overwhelmed with COVID patients, healthcare workers are bracing for a spike in deaths. Reporter Lauren Karuba and photographer Bob Owen have the latest from the front lines. In late May, after Governor Greg Abbott rolled back lockdown rules and allowed bars in Texas to partly reopen, 29-year-old Samantha Tillman went out to lift a few cold ones, just because it had been so long. She patronized a few restaurants, went to the grocery store, the gas station, she had a birthday party for her son, and took a family trip to Port Aransas. Her 67-year-old father didn't hesitate to head downtown and stand with the others defending the Alamo during a crowded Black Lives Matter protest in June. Then they both started feeling sick. The test confirmed it. It was COVID-19. Emily Eaton and Melissa Fletcher-Stolce examined what's behind the trend of younger people contracting COVID-19 and what local health officials are doing to try to stop it. To keep our readers up to date on the path of COVID-19, the Express News has built a dashboard of interactive graphics showing the spread of the virus in the San Antonio area, in Texas as a whole, and across the United States. You can find a link to the dashboard in the episode's description. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside your Express News subscription. Governor Greg Abbott is under increasing political fire from both sides as he responds to a sharp rise in coronavirus deaths by implementing more restrictions on Texans and increasingly warning of another shutdown if people fail to wear masks. Just since March, Texas has added nearly 149,000 voters, even as the political parties and voter registration groups face new obstacles. The state now has a record 16.4 million voters, 2.1 million more than it had just over 4 years ago. At least 74,000 immigrants and would-be voters in Texas are likely to be excluded from the 2020 elections as the coronavirus and looming budget crisis at the agency overseeing naturalization have essentially ground the process to a halt. Rackspace Technology Incorporated, one of San Antonio's biggest tech firms, is headed back to the stock market. The cloud service company on Friday filed for initial public offering with the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Texas Attorney General's office on Saturday sided with Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner in a legal dispute over the state's Republican Party's in-person convention, arguing that the Texas Supreme Court should reject the party's attempt to proceed with the event. Columnist Elena Ayala writes, quote, "The devastating cuts to the Institute of Texan Cultures early this month won't be forgotten for a long time. Local ITC devotees will see to that." Parents must decide whether to put their kids at risk to COVID-19 or subject them to social isolation, writes columnist Gilbert Garcia about the impossible choice the TEA has created. The Spurs coach didn't bring politics to the sports page. The world did, and it started a long time ago, writes Mike Finger. The Express News editorial board calls for insensitive team names to change, writing, quote, "The Washington football team and the Cleveland baseball team are reviewing their names with the strong possibility that the designations will be replaced." Just 6 months ago, the number of passengers flying non-stop between San Antonio International Airport and Mexico was growing fast. Then the pandemic hit. Randy Diamond has a story on how the pandemic cut deeply into the San Antonio to Mexico air travel. This week in history, on July 16, 2013, George Zimmerman was found not guilty in the killing of Trayvon Martin. Much of the country was embroiled in questions of race and equality. Express News reporter Hector Saldaña wrote about the racial issues surrounding the killing of Martin, quote, "Nearly 50 years after Martin Luther King's landmark I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial in late August 1963, America is hardly post-racial. The country continues to find itself in a quandary about race whenever, wherever, or however it's interjected into a conversation," Saldaña wrote way back when. You can find the cover at expressnews.com/covers and at the link in the episode's description. All over the country, people have decided to get back into sewing or to take it up for the first time. In an era of fast fashion and keep what you like and return the rest online shopping, sewing had mostly fallen out of favor, at least until the pandemic hit. Now, stuck at home with oodles of free time, folks are starting to turn to sewing to give them something to do and perhaps save money at the same time. As a result, sewing machines like bicycles and home exercise equipment have become hard to find pandemic must-haves. Bill and Ted star Alex Winter talks about his new HBO documentary, Showbiz Kids. Like many young talents in the entertainment industry, Alex Winter struggled with grueling hours, frequent bouts of isolation and insecurity, and the dangers of exploitation and even abuse. 4 decades later, he brings childhood stardom down to earth in his new documentary, Showbiz Kids, which debuts at 8 p.m. Tuesday on HBO. Life in the NBA's bubble is a no-frills existence, but the Spurs aim to extend their stay as long as possible. Jeff McDonald has the latest on the Spurs' hunt for a playoff bid. X Factor Pizzeria restaurant near Port San Antonio was a, quote, "once was enough" in our 52 Weeks of Pizza series by Chuck Blunt. Also, Julie Garcia gives us the key to working out in a mask. In golf news, David Lipsky earned his first ever Korn Ferry Tour win, claiming the TPC San Antonio Challenge at the Canyons on Sunday. And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all of the stories you heard about today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.